The Hatch tab is used to generate hatching or a fill in objects when marking. We'll take a look at a few of the hatch options available in this tab. At the very top is the Pair Preset drop-down box. From this drop-down, you can select one of 9 hatch styles. You don't need to select one, but if you want to save your hatch settings for future use, you should select a hatch style to save over before changing your hatch settings. For now, we'll choose Hatch Style 1. Near the top of the Hatch tab is a drop-down list with different sets of pairs, labeled Pair A to Pair E. Each pair represents a combination of 2 hatch settings which can be set below. We'll start with the default, Pair A. Below the drop-down list are 2 radio buttons labeled Hatch 1A and Hatch 2A. Each one represents one of the 2 different hatch settings available under Pair A. By default, Hatch 1A is selected. Let's look at some of the most common settings available. The Enable checkbox turns the hatch settings on and off. When Enable is checked, you can change the hatch settings, and the settings will be applied when the object is marked. If Enable is not checked, then you will not be able to change the hatch settings, and the hatch settings will not be applied when the object is marked. When changing the value of the Enable checkbox, make sure to click on the Apply button at the bottom of this tab in order for the change to take effect. Also, notice that currently in the Pair drop-down box, there appears to be a long dash between 2 brackets next to Pair A. These are actually 2 negatives placed side by side. Each negative represents one of the 2 hatches available for the current pair. Right now, neither hatch is enabled, so they are represented by negatives. However, if I click on Enable under Hatch 1A and click Apply, the first negative turns into a positive, showing that Hatch 1A is enabled. Similarly, if I switch to Hatch 2A and click Enable and then Apply, the other negative turns into a positive as well. Knowing this, you can click on the Pair drop-down box and quickly see which pairs have been enabled and which haven't. Now let's go back to the settings for Hatch 1A. The value for distance is measured in millimeters. The number entered here is the distance between the lines used to create the hatch. We'll change the value of the distance to 1 millimeter. When we click Apply, we'll see a gap between the lines in the fill. If we change the value to 0.5 millimeters, the gap will be much smaller. If you are looking for a solid fill with no gaps between lines, 0.05 millimeters is a good starting point. Keep in mind that the smaller the value you enter here, the longer it will take to complete the mark. The angle setting determines the angle of the hatch lines. Let's change the distance back to 1 millimeter so we can see this a little better. Currently, the angle is set to 0 degrees, which creates horizontal lines. If we were to switch it to 90 degrees, the lines will become vertical. 45 degrees, and the lines are now diagonal. The Style button shows the direction the laser will move as it marks. The blue lines on the icon show the marked lines and their direction. The red lines show the scanner jumps, or where the scanner moves without actually marking. So with this current style, the laser marks from right to left. When it reaches the end of the object, it stops marking as the laser moves up, then begins marking again as it moves from left to right. To select other styles, simply click on the Style button. The style will affect the look of the mark and how long it takes for the mark to finish, so try experimenting with different styles. Below the Style button are 2 offset values. Start offset defines the start distance between the outer line of the object and the first hatch line. By default, the value is 0, so the hatch begins at the edge of the object. Let's change the value to 4 millimeters. The current style has the hatch beginning at the bottom of the object, so when we click Apply, the hatch will begin 4 millimeters above the bottom of the object. The end offset does the same thing as the start offset, but this time it happens at the end of the hatch. We'll set this to 4 millimeters too, and when we click Apply, the hatch will end 4 millimeters before the top edge of the object. Now, remember that we're currently in hatch 1A. We can still make changes to hatch 2A as well. So let's select hatch 2A and click on Enable to enable this hatch. All we'll do for this one is change the angle to 90 degrees and click Apply. We'll see that we've now added a second set of hatches according to the settings in hatch 2A. If we were to mark this now, the laser would create a fill for the object according to the settings in hatch 1A, and then mark a second fill according to the settings in hatch 2A. At the beginning of this video, we chose hatch style 1 for our paired preset. To save these settings to this preset, we need to click on the Store Pair to Preset button. You'll get a pop-up asking if you want to save the state of all hatch-enabled checkboxes. You can click yes or no according to your preference. Now let's create a new shape. And let's go to the hatch settings, and we can see that the default values are currently there. But if I go into the Pair Preset drop-down menu and select Hatch Style 1, we'll see that the default settings are replaced now by all the settings that we had just saved into this style. And once we click Apply, we'll see that those settings are applied to the new shape.